Joining me now are three of the best political analysts in the country, New York Daily News columnist and CNN contributor Errol Louis. Errol is also the host of the morning show on WWRL in New York, Democratic strategist and CNN contributor Sheinkopf, and in our D.C. bureau, Martin Katie, congressional correspondent Politico. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. We must first start off. We've seen a loss of 500,000 jobs in the month of November. This is fairly stunning numbers. Hank, let's start with you. Your thoughts on this?
It's awful. This administration has no power to do anything about it. It's up to the Obama administration to do something about it. And people, I think, are having the hope that that the new players will be able to do something about these stunning unemployment increases.
Yeah, Errol, one of the problems is we're sort of in between administrations. I mean, let's face it, President Bush does not have a lot of clout. He doesn't have a lot of authority here. We heard him speak. But the Obama administration is saying, President-elect Obama is saying, look, I'm not the president yet.
Well, that's right. And they're very sensibly, from a political standpoint, choosing not to own a crisis that was not of their making, frankly. So you've got Henry Paulson in China. You've got Condoleezza Rice playing piano for the Queen of England. There doesn't seem to be anybody in charge. This is going to make things worse than it would have been. Unemployment rate is getting up around 7%. The economists I've talked to say that we should expect it to top out around 10%. More pain ahead.
We have some sound that we have from President Bush. He is still expressing confidence in the economy, saying that he's optimistic that things will turn around. Let's take a listen.
It's going to take time for all the actions we've taken to have their full impact. But I am confident that the steps we're taking will help fix the problems in our economy and return it to strength. My administration is committed to ensuring that our economy succeeds. And I know the incoming administration shares the same commitment.
Martin, we have been hearing a lot of talk, a lot of rhetoric, not a lot of answers. You've seen foreclosures soaring 76% in the last year. As we mentioned, 500,000 jobs lost in November. What's going on here?
Well, it's interesting to hear the president talk about the actions we've taken. I think he's mostly talking about this $700 billion Wall Street bailout, which doesn't seem to have done anything except confuse people. Secretary Paulson seems to move the ball every time he says what he's about to do with the money, and it's not helping the economy yet. What Obama is doing and already planning with the Democratic Congress for one of the first actions in January is a longer-term economic stimulus. Not a bailout, but something on the order of $500 billion, maybe as much as $700 billion economic stimulus that's more jobs-focused. Something, rather than just getting a check in the mail, like we did with the last stimulus back last January, they're talking about something that's sort of a government jobs project, a 2-year stimulus, because this is the root of the problem now that we've seen these unemployment figures. It's, we're close to 7% unemployment. It's the worst job loss since 1974, which was a terrible recession. So this is their plan, but we can't really get anything done in this month or so interim where we're kind of really between presidents.
Yeah, Hank, the stimulus package that they're talking about, it comes with a price tag estimated to be about $500 billion. Obviously, the country is losing jobs. So how do you sort of balance that? Because on Washington, we saw the $700 billion bailout. On top of that, they're going to ask taxpayers for $500 billion for a stimulus plan. That's going to be a bit of a hard sell.
Two things will happen here. They're going to have to do something in significant magnitude to stimulate the economy. You spend out of a recession, and you hope that it works. Getting people to work again on infrastructure projects provides some long-term good for the country, but the real issue will be inflation a year and a half down the road. When you print money, you create inflation. They're printing an awful lot of money, and Paulson's plan hasn't worked. So look for consistent long-term plan from this administration coming in that involves creating jobs instantly.
Errol, turning to the auto bailout, do you think the numbers that we are looking at, do you think that's going to make it more likely that they will pass some kind of a bailout for the
Oh,
Big
yeah,
Three?
listen, I don't think some kind of rescue plan, whether it's a bailout or something else, I don't think that there was ever any question it's going to have to be done. You cannot add 2 or 3 million more people to these already shocking unemployment numbers. I do think, though, that there's going to have to be some leadership out of Washington. They're going to have to come clean with the American public. They're going to have to say, listen, bankruptcy is not the same as liquidation and, complete destruction. Bankruptcy means you reorganize it. We've all flown on bankrupt airlines for many, many years. A lot of people work for bankrupt companies and never miss a paycheck. It has to be completely reorganized. There's going to have to be a rethinking of both the union contracts, the long-term debt. They're going to have to make some changes at the board of directors, the product line, all of that stuff. But, with 60% of the public saying that the auto industry does not deserve a bailout, mostly because they either don't like their cars or something like that, it's going to be very hard to build it and build support for what everybody, I think, in Washington knows is going to have to be done. That's why they're trying to ask the White House, whether it's this White House or the next one, to, quote, lead them. And it's a little bit shameful, frankly. I mean, this is why we elected these folks. They need to, sit down, be truthful with all of us about what they're going to do, and then just go ahead and do it and throw the polls away.
All right, we're going to pick up the discussion in just a moment, and we will be back with much more from our panel. Stay with us. We're back with Errol Louis, Hank Sheinkopf, and Martin Cady. Thank you very much for joining us, gentlemen. Senator Christopher Dodd, chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, earlier in the week, he said that to do nothing for the big three is essentially playing Russian roulette with the economy. Martin, can you weigh in here?
Well, here's what's going on. This is really the last game of chicken between a Democratic Congress and the Republican president. Nancy Pelosi and the Senate leaders over in the Senate, they really don't want to call another vote on another bailout during a lame duck session unless they have the votes lined up. And right now, it's not 100% clear that they have the votes. So they're asking the president to pull the money out of the Wall Street bailout and say, let's spend some of that on the auto bailout. Meanwhile, GM is saying they need money before the end of this month. They can't wait until the next Congress. So this is still up in the air, and they're going back and forth. No one wants to be responsible for the bailout. Everyone kind of thinks something needs to happen, though. So we're not getting a ton of leadership, and we're not getting clear, decisive answers yet out of Washington.
Yeah, you've summed that up very nicely. In fact, we have some sound that we can play from Christopher Dodd. But, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. The votes are not there, but everybody says something needs to be done. Let's listen to Senator Christopher Dodd.
In my view, we need to act, not for the purpose of protecting a handful of companies. If that were the extent of the issue, I would let them fail. I acknowledge that those who advocate such a course on the assumption that pressure from the outside will produce the desired results. My concern with such an approach is that it plays Russian roulette with the entire economy of the United States. Inaction is no solution.
Hank, your thoughts? Will they or won't they?
They probably will not do it now. They probably will try to put it over to January. They'll play chicken with the auto industry. The larger issue is what happens. Can Americans swallow another bailout? And they'll want a structured bankruptcy. Probably it'll be more likable for Americans to tolerate, number one. Number two, the larger issue for the Obama administration coming out of this will be national health care reform. That's what ultimately propels the automakers' argument, and that's what Obama's going to have to deal with.
Yeah, let's turn, in fact, to Senator Obama. He has selected, he's marching along in his cabinet picks here, building this sort of team of rivals, if you will. What do you think of his approach, Errol?
Well, I've been reading the book, Team of Rivals, just to really get at it as more than a slogan. And, as it turns out, Lincoln actually had a lot of turmoil in this cabinet. And I hope that Obama realizes that he may be buying a little bit of trouble. And it was significant trouble under Lincoln. We were talking about a war secretary who had to be fired, both for corruption and because he was about to lose the Civil War for us, We're talking about a Treasury Secretary under Lincoln who resigned 4 times, and on the 4th time, Lincoln accepted it. So, it's the no-drama Obama persona that he's built up may have to go by the wayside. On the other hand, listen, what we need is unified leadership, and however he does it. That actually goes back a little bit to the infrastructure question. The smartest thing about his infrastructure plan is that it involves the governors of all the states. So the governors can join the Congress, can join the White House, can join private industry, and all saying to the public, we are united, we have a plan, we're all in this together. It's the opposite of what's happening right now with the auto bailout.
Martin, your thoughts on this?
Well, what Obama's doing with each of his rollouts here, he's already set a record for press conferences for president-elect. He's getting buy-in from the key segments. By keeping Gates and bringing on Hillary Clinton, he's getting a certain amount of buy-in for unity on national security. He did the same thing with Wall Street by choosing a top Wall Street guy, the New York Fed chair, Geithner. And next week, he's going to... we're expecting him to tap one of the leading minds on health care, former Senator Tom Daschle, to be the HHS secretary, to sort of unify this rollout and get people behind a universal health care reform. Plus, he's getting a lot of airtime. If you notice, every time that Obama has a press conference in the middle of the day, all the 3 cable networks interrupt, and Obama dominates. And that's why he's getting buy-in with each of these announcements.
Yeah, Hank, a lot of powerful figures, but a lot of powerful egos. We'll give you the last word.
They will put them aside for one reason. They want President Obama to be a successful president, and they want the country to survive economically.
The country certainly needs that.
Needs the help.
All right, Hank, Errol, and Martin, thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much, gentlemen.